We're back for another Space Goat podcast. We're close to Christmas now. We're hoping we can fit another podcast in before Christmas, but if not, we'll look forward to speaking to you all in the new year. This week, we're going to be talking about web design, whether it's worth the money that businesses pay for it, what our solutions are as a company, and how we can get the cost down on that, and just some general opinions around websites and web design and how it's evolved through the years. So, yeah, we'll jump in. I mean, the main thing I wanted to talk about was how much companies pay for web design. It's an expense that I think a lot of people don't necessarily consider or don't know how expensive it really is when they're starting up their business. You know, a good web designer is going to run you anywhere between, I would say, £3,000 and £10,000 for a decent website, especially if you require hosting services and domains and integration. Do you guys think that's fair value for what you get?
No. So I've sort of, as you guys know, done a fair bit of web design myself, and it does take a while, and it is something that you need to sort of have a knack for and a skill for. So sort of in my view, I think it's definitely worth it. And while, yeah, you do have these websites like Squarespace and WordPress, like they do give you a generic website, but it's really hard to personalize that to your business, and that's what you're paying for. And I always find the Squarespace ones look nice, but you can always tell when you're going on a website, like, oh, this is a Squarespace website, just because they're quite generic and have the same theme. And you go on sort of these personalized websites that have like custom Java and HTML, and they're always like a lot nicer to be on. Sort of just, they flow a lot nicer, and they just sort of match the brand identity a lot more. And so I definitely think it's sort of, I would personally consider it worth sort of the big heap of money it does cost.
I see what you mean. I think my problem with it is that there's definitely a spectrum of web design, in that you get the high quality web design, which you obviously produce. I'm not going to say your websites that you produce are awful, even if I wanted to. That's sort of the high quality. And again, you pay for that. You pay for the quality. But then what I've also seen is a lot of companies who can't afford to pay that high-end budget, and so go with the lower cost web developers. And I think when you're getting more towards that end of the spectrum, it definitely feels like those websites stand out more as bad than a Squarespace website, because at least with the Squarespace website, you get that higher level of control, consistency, and the expiry date on it is a lot longer as well. Because I also find with poor web design, there's not a lot of thought gone into legacy, and those are the websites that age the worst, the quickest, I find as well.
No, definitely. Like, if you get a website made cheaply, quickly, it's not going to age well, and the functionality of it is never good. That is one pro of Squarespace. It's sort of anyone who can sort of use the internet can make a website, which is obviously an incredible tool. But it definitely is. There's a spectrum. It's the more you pay, the better the website you get. But there's definitely a limit of how little you can pay, where Squarespace will take over sort of that lower end of the role and look better than the cheaper ones.
Yeah, I think we're using Squarespace as an example because Squarespace, I would say, out of all the template developers, is definitely the more user-friendly end. WordPress is more in between. You can actually hire WordPress developers to jump onto the site, and there's a lot more customization there. And I think Wix, as much as Wix has been a dominant force within that area for a long time, it feels a little bit dated now, Wix, a lot of the time for me.
Yeah, Wix is definitely going in the background. It's much like sort of Skype used to be the dominant call, and now Teams has taken over.
Yeah.
It's just Squarespace has gone a lot more modern and user-friendly, which is the most important thing when you're sort of doing anything now.
Yeah, I think they tapped into a trend that was going around, this idea of when you jump onto a website, you're hit immediately with a large image or a showreel or a video. That definitely is the current trend. And visual content is definitely more of a dominating force within websites now. And I think Squarespace plays into that a lot. But you're right, Squarespace has a lot of templates on it, but you can still always tell when you're jumping onto a Squarespace website. But I think for a lot of business owners, my personal recommendation, and this is something that we advise as a business anyway, is that if you don't have the money to spend on a high-end web developer, and also the money to continuously spend on a web development, because this is another thing that people don't realise, is that with web development, it's not a one-time fee. You don't pay for the initial cost and then you get the rest of it for free. Your website will always need updating. There'll be new content that you'll need to add, updates you'll need to make to your infrastructure to make sure that it, works with the latest devices. And that's where you find a lot of websites where companies might have paid a lot of money 5 to 10 years ago, but when you load them up now, they just look awful and you get the square aspect ratio trying to stretch on a 16:9 screen. It just looks bad, and you can always tell that those are the websites where they might have paid a bit of money a long time ago, but haven't had the capital to invest in it since. And again, that's another area where Squarespace kind of shines, because even if you left that website for 5 years, as long as you paid for your Squarespace subscription, which is less than what you would pay for an initial web developer to come in and create a website, you would at least have all of that, ability for your website to work with all the new devices and new laptops and computers.
No, definitely. What's your thoughts, Max?
Well, I think spending money on a website is kind of, it is an important thing to do in some regards, obviously depending on your budget, like especially nowadays when no one's going to any shops or anything. Like a website is your company's face, if that makes sense, and it's got to make a good impression on everybody. And then what you're paying for with these big high-end agencies that cost thousands and thousands is the iteration process. They test these things, they wireframe them, they plan them out, all sorts of stuff like that, just to make sure it's really premium. But I think like you said, Josh, what these website builders have done is make the lower end better, if that makes sense. The lower end of the price scale, the quality of that low end has gone up a lot. But that's not to say that you can't make a bad website with Squarespace or Wix. Like, you still got to have some sort of design skill and a bit of an eye for it. And that's kind of what you might want to pay someone else to do if you haven't got an eye for it, or you just don't have the time to build a website on. Even these website builders, it's really time consuming.
Yeah.
I've definitely found that.
Yeah, and it's something that we've obviously spotted, and not something that we've seen a lot of people offering. I think that's why we've kind of decided that it's something we'd like to do as a business, as another service to offer, because it is a shame that there are a lot of, especially we've noticed during the last year with lockdown and everything that's happened, where businesses on a high street haven't been able to open up. They've, a lot of them might not have a very strong digital front. And if they don't have a knowledge, they're not very tech savvy or have a good knowledge of design, which is not expected. Not everyone's going to have that. And not everyone has the time to sit down and watch 100 hours of tutorials online on how to design the perfect Squarespace site, or how to design a website, or have the money, again, then to throw at a web developer to do it all for them. That's kind of where what we're trying to offer comes in, this idea of we can work with you in more than a web development way. We're here to create a digital face for the company through content, web design, and ultimately with that end goal in mind of creating a digital face for the company across your website, social media, branding, video, photography. And I think that's what businesses are in desperate need of at an affordable rate, so they don't have to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for an agency to come and do it all for them. It's just obviously the educating businesses that service is out there. I think that's something that's we've experienced a lot of pushback on, is people don't know where they need to go to find out about that.
Yeah. And I think either way, whether you go to the sort of lower end of the price or the higher, it's not like a luxury anymore, having a nice website and digital presence. It's an investment, and it probably will pay back or more, if you don't do it, you might suffer because it can turn a lot of consumers off having a bad digital presence that's not really thought out, or they've not really taken it seriously, I think, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. And it's also just having an end goal, and there's something that I always push for whenever I talk to clients about making content. The first question I like to ask is, well, what's the point? So if you want to make a video promoting your business, why do you want to do that? And if it's a case of they want to get more customers through the door, then that's fine. But at the moment, where a lot of places can't get customers through the door, then it's a lot of the time the answer is, I want to get more customers to buy on my website. Okay, so how are you going to get them to come on your website? Well, I need to have a click-through link or a link on the screen to the website. Okay, so if we created a really high-quality video for your website, is that going to, gel well with how your website looks? If the website that you're putting it on doesn't look very nice, but you've got a really nice high-quality video that you've invested a lot of money in, is there really much point in investing that much money in a video when really you should be investing it in maybe doing up your website slightly? Because if that's what you want people to end up on and be exploring to learn more about you as a business and how they can, do business with you, surely that's more important than just investing in one individual piece of content and going to a niche specialist for that content rather than working with someone to develop your entire branding. Stumped you on that one, obviously. Yeah, it's a debate, and I'm sure there was a lot of web developers who would, come back and say, well, you aren't web developers by trade, so how can you speak for web developers?
Yeah.
And that's true, we're not. We aren't specifically trained in web development, and we aren't specifically trained in a lot of areas. We've always considered ourselves media professionals, and a lot of the work we do is content creation, and that's something that you're seeing more and more now. And
I think if a client came in with a bigger budget and they really wanted something really high end that is going to match some of these really professional clients, I would probably ask to draft in a proper someone who can really do it from scratch, and then we can focus on the content, which is obviously having all of that makes it a lot better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And that is the difference though, isn't it, between a bigger budget client and a smaller budget client. The niche gets smaller and smaller as the client gets bigger and bigger. And it's one of the reasons we formed SpaceGoat initially, was because we all have niche skills which when combined allow us to service a larger area. And even though you and I, Max, both do video work, the kind of video work that we do is very different, and the skill sets we have are very different, which in a way is a benefit because it allows us to work in more niche roles on a broader variety.
Yeah, exactly. Sam can do everything. He's an
Sam can just do everything.
Sam loves
definitely not
HTML.
Yeah.
You don't need to give me a camera. You can keep those to yourself, guys.
Great. Well, I think we covered the web design. Was there anything else you guys wanted to cover before we ended? Anything else that pops to mind? Anything you've seen in the news this week, potentially?
Oh, God.
We've seen London's heading into Tier 3. That's just been announced today.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So no more work in London for a little while.
You can still work, kind of.
I think so. The creative industry has been a really complicated one in how we fit in with the work system throughout the coronavirus. If you see having someone in your office that doesn't usually work in your office is obviously a bit more risky than having a team that always works together. And I think that's been a lot of the case this last year, as people would be more inclined to have their own office workers come back in, but having a complete stranger come in and film with everyone in your office and then have them the next day go to another office and film with them and another place of work and another place of work, I think that's been a bit of a concern for people. So I think from our point of view, we're hoping the new year and the vaccine and everything that's being rolled out could potentially be a little bit easier to manage, but
hopefully. Luckily it does count as work. It is obviously work that you can't do from home, going on a shoot. And as long as you're following all the
guidelines,
wearing masks and everything, it's fine for most most shoots, and you can always work it to shoot 2 meters.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to be shooting too close to someone's face anyway.
Yeah, if you've got a good range of lenses, you should be okay. Yeah, we should have got some Space Goat hazmat suits.
Oh, that would
have been that would have been pretty good for this year. Maybe next year, if things spiral again, then maybe we could invest in some.
Don't jinx that.
No, touch wood.
I'm going to stay at home in my corner.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's a nice place to end it there. So thank you very much for everyone that's listening. And if you'd like to know more about what we do and have a chat with us about any projects you would like to work with us on, you can get in touch with us at hello@spacegoat.media or find us on our website www.spacegoat.media. Thank you, Sam and Max, and hopefully we will see you all next week.
Woohoo.
See you guys.
Happy Christmas.